Hey everybody, I'm going to look today at getting used to improvising using the blues scale, or an introduction to blues soloing. So the first thing to get your head around are the notes in the blues scale. It's not hard, there's only 6 of them. You just have to memorize them. Start with one position. So I just posted a video a couple of days ago on the cage system. And yes, the blues scale can be used in all of the 5 cage positions. But I would just start with good old faithful, which is this one. So that's out of what's called an E position, because we're using the E form of a bar chord. We are in the key of A though, just for consistency. So the blues scale has 6 notes, so therefore it is what's known as a hexatonic scale. So fancy classical word for a 6-note scale. I think one of the most important things as a guitar player is to really become familiar with the sound of each scale degree. You know, each scale degree has its own quality. It's almost like a color or a different hue of a color. And once you're aware of the sound that that note has, then you can use it to maximum effect in your solos. So I would suggest singing up and down the scale when you play it, because that's really going to lock your ear and your mind into the physical aspect of playing the notes. So if we just look at it, you've got, in blues soloing, a lot of things end up around the tonic, and we keep coming back to the tonic all the time. It's not the most interesting note, but it's certainly the most stable note. Okay, it's what's known as a perfect consonant in classical music. So the 5th degree is also the same. It's kind of bland, but there's a strength, almost like a pillar in a house or a Roman column. So that sound we're going to keep coming back to. I mean, B.B. King could do a whole chorus of a blues just riding the tonic and make it sound fantastic. So that's something that you can check out as well. The next degree is going to be the minor third. And this is going to be, that's the sad note of the scale. It has this sort of forlorn quality to it. And it, of course it should, it is a minor third. It is what's known as an imperfect consonance. Okay, so it's still within the key, but it's not that pure perfect sonority that we have when we play a 5th or the tonic. The next note in the scale is the 4th degree of the scale. Now the 4th degree has this longing because it wants to either go back to the 3rd or it wants to go up to the 5th. In classical music, that would be known as a dissonance. A 4th is technically a dissonance. So when you have a suspension in a chord, again, it's a dissonance because you want to hear that like that. But I love staying on the 4th because you can hear that tension. And when you start, music is all about tension and release. So once you start playing around with the tension, that's when interesting things happen. The next note after that is the flat 5th, also known as an augmented 4th or a sharp 4 or a tritone. This is the blues note, okay? So that the addition of the flat 5 is the only difference between a minor pentatonic scale, 5 notes, and a blues scale with 6 notes. That interval in the Middle Ages was banned because it was considered so harsh that it had to be the music of the devil. So it was known as Diabolus in Musica, and there were penalties for playing it. But heavy metal is based on that genre, and so is the blues, and it's a very, very useful note. Believe it or not, it is a dissonance, and it's not a note that I would linger on, but you can use it for great effect if you're in. Like that. Then we get to the 5th, so we get that chromatic movement, which can be useful going between them. And then we talked about the 5th earlier. Then we get up to the flat 7. The Flat 7 is also a dissonance because it wants to go up to the tonic. And they're all the notes that you have. You just have them repeated. Now what I would suggest doing is put on a backing track and start with maybe 1 or 2 notes and get used to how they sound in the context of chords. So at this stage I wouldn't be worrying about changing key with chords. I would just pick a blues. We're in the key of A, so just pick a blues in the key of A, and when you're playing over chord 1, which is an A, this note here, an A is going to sound really strong. When it goes to chord 4, which is a D, it's also going to sound really strong because in D, an A is the 5th, so it's also a perfect consonance. But it's going to have a different sound, okay, because it's no longer the tonic. And then when you get to the E, it's not actually going to sound that strong at all because it's going to be a 4th now, so we'll get this sus4 chord sound. So it doesn't fundamentally change the note we're playing at A, but it's like putting a stool on a stage and putting a spotlight on it and then putting a different filter light in there. So it might be just a regular spotlight. Then when it goes to A, it might be a slightly dimmer version of the original one. And then we get to E, it might be with a purple filter or something. It doesn't change the note, but the note sounds slightly different. So I would get used to different rhythms, different ways you can play it as well. You know, you could do it. So, I mean, you can make a chorus out of that. Then I would add an extra note. So let's say, for example, maybe the minor third now. They work very well as a group. And then adding vibrato. So when you only have 2 notes, you've got to start getting really creative about how you're going to sustain interest. So vibrato is one of those ones we can really sustain the note. If you're holding a note for a period of time and nothing's happening on it, then you better start wiggling it because that's not very interesting. But all of a sudden now, you got a beautiful note. Bending. So even though I'm on a minor third, depending on the context, if I had more major sounding blues, I'd probably imply a major third by bending. Like that. And muting. I'm playing with my fingers now, but you can always mute with the right hand while you're doing picking, so you can get that. And I would sing this as well. Again, singing is a good way of coming up with a strong line. It forces you to phrase because you have to breathe like a sax player or a vocalist. And it just gets your ear really listening to what these notes are doing and how they sound. It's also good to sing while you're away from the guitar as well and try and pick it up. So just knowing which note is which. So then I might add the 4th, and there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do by creating tension from bending from the 3rd up to the 4th and then going back to the 3rd. Clapton does a lot of that. We'll go like, particularly in the mid-60s in his blues breaker period, he was doing that kind of stuff where he would bend up from a minor third up to like a major third, or just shy of a major third, and then he would hit the 4th, and then he would bend back up. So you get this sort of slightly out of tune, and that's part of the charm. And you'd be muting with your right hand, so it's quite staccato. Staccato, for anyone who's not familiar with that term, is a classical term which means short and detached. It's staccato, as opposed to legato, which is smooth and connected. So when you're you're on that fourth, you can slide up really briefly to the flat 5. Sounds great. Or you can bend. And then basically everything kind of goes back to the tonic. Or you can end on the minor third. Then what you might want to do is go up to the flat 7 as well. That sounds cool, going 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7. And my ear at least hears, I've got to go to that tonic. Like that's, the tension's building. And they're all the notes you have to play with. You can add extra notes, right? There are other notes that you can borrow from parallel minor scales. There are chromatic notes you can play with. We can get into the whole jazz thing. But when it comes to just pure minor blues playing, they're all the notes in the scale, and there is a lot you can do with that. You know, it's what, obviously blues, rock and roll, and I would go as far as saying probably 80% of every guitar solo you've ever heard has been made up of just those notes. Maybe less, maybe only 5 of them with the pentatonics. So just try doing that. Try singing. Maybe pick for a couple of days just 1 or 2 notes you're going to work with, so you really get to hear how they sound and how they work with each other. Then add a third note and try them in different string combinations and different parts of the fretboard. So you might have a very simple lick that goes like. They're all the places that you could play that using the different positions. That might take a little while to build to, but the main thing to remember is this should be fun. Okay, you're creating music, like it doesn't get much better than that. It's just such a joy, but it makes it even more rewarding when you know what it is you want to play. It's no different to speaking. I know what it is that I want to say on this video, and all I have to do is just open my mouth and the words come out, because I've spent years, went to school, studied English, so forth, so I can articulate what I want. And you should try and aim to do the same on the guitar, articulate what you want. Otherwise, it may not be the most melodic or coherent solo you've ever heard. And we've all heard guitar solos where it waffles and meanders, and then you hear these paragons or titans, Clapton, Hendrix, the list goes on. And each player probably has their own method of approaching the end result, but there's this clarity, and they're storytellers at the end of the day. A great solo is a solo that takes you on a journey. And I think one of the greatest contemporary soloists like that is Derek Trucks. Like, my gosh, that guy, particularly when he does a slow song like Midnight in Harlem or a blues, it's like being told an epic story. It's incredible. So just have a listen to him. And how he builds, that's something that you can aspire to. His phrasing is fantastic. But if you have any questions, leave a comment underneath. Please share this video with anyone you think this is going to be useful for. I just want to try and help as many guitarists as possible understand concepts that can be confusing, and I just want to simplify things so that it's approachable and anyone can get involved in playing the greatest instrument of all time. So take it easy and have fun.